What is up, everyone? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we will be reacting to the hilarious history of censorship in NASCAR. One of you has requested that I react to this, so we're going to get straight into it. But before we do that, make sure you subscribe. Over half of you that watch my videos still not subscribed. Just hit the bell, it takes 2 seconds. And if you'd like to become a member on my channel and receive exclusive perks, you can also do that by hitting the join button down below. Okay, let's go.
A few years ago, I made a video about the wild world of weird-ass racing sponsors. Sponsors like ABBA, Cartoon Network, Durex, and WWE. And in that video, I briefly alluded to the restrictions of tobacco sponsors in Formula One, the goofy-odd ways they got around them, like leaving cars blank, replacing them with the drivers' names, or using these barcodes that, when passing by you at over 200 miles per hour, actually look like the logos they're replacing. These kinds of practices are actually fairly new, as the rules of what you can and cannot put on a race car used to be surprisingly lax. In fact, from the early 70s to the early 2000s, during what most would consider their golden age, NASCAR and the NHRA's title sponsor was Winston Tobacco, meaning that for over 30 years, the poster child for auto racing in America was cigarettes, which honestly makes sense. But their departure in 2003 is important, not just because it marked the end of the most turbulent time in NASCAR's history, but because it represents a new beginning. You see, censoring sponsors was nothing new to NASCAR, but after Winston left, it became about as commonplace as the pit stop. Drug abuse and race manipulation? Forget all of that, because in NASCAR's entire 76-year history, there has never been a more disgusting, more deplorable, more disgraceful controversy than Bottlegate.
What's Bottlegate? I'm scared.
Okay, it might not be as bad as I just made it sound, but if you asked NASCAR executives at the time, you'd think the world was ending. They had just phased out Gatorade as their official sports drink in favor of Powerade, but some of the Pepsi-sponsored drivers weren't exactly fans of the Coke-produced product. One of those drivers was Jimmy Johnson, who after Kamehamehaing multiple Powerade bottles off the roof of his car, broke the camel's back in 2004 at Pocono, where he went out of his way to grab the Lowe's logo and use it to block the bottle. This came just 2 weeks after NASCAR president Mike Helton had outlawed such shenanigans, and to ensure that it would never happen again, they fined Johnson $10,000, citing his actions as detrimental to stock car racing. Jimmy tried to argue, but the sanctioning body wouldn't budge, upholding possibly the
I don't get it. Why is he getting so
Another bottle chucker was Mark Martin, who after repping Valvoline for a near decade had taken up a new sponsor, one that would inspire a chuckle from most who first heard about it, Viagra. The deal itself was rock solid. In fact, it was one of the biggest at the time, as it pumped an estimated $15 million per year into the team's system for the 5 years they were around. But they couldn't last any longer, as while the relationship itself was enjoyable for both parties, it did complicate merchandising. Busch Beer had become known for putting some of the flashiest paint schemes on track. From covering a car in flannel to epitomizing Gen X to whatever this was, they had become known for pushing the limits of brand identity. Though in late 2019, they would bring in their most bombastic idea yet. For some reason, Kevin Harvick had a habit of running sponsors with names very similar to his competitors, like racing against Jimmy Johnson in the Jimmy John's car. Now he was competing against Kurt and Kyle Busch in the Busch car, so the ad execs decided that for once, they would rep his name, as they would undergo a 1-week rebrand and make every single decal, including the ones on his fire suit, read Harvick Beer.
Man, you never got a beer named after you. What
I didn't.
That's crazy.
Of all people, I thought you'd have had a beer.
I know. He beat me to the punch here.
Wait, they got their panties in a bunch over Viagra, but are perfectly fine with Extends? A male enhancement drug that doesn't even work? What a flimsy excuse. There's also been a lot of exclusions unrelated to regulation, but rather copyright. When you play a NASCAR game, you have to consider that pretty much every logo, from a giant billboard to an itty-bitty sticker on a quarter panel, has to have approval from the copyright holder. And all things considered, they usually do an admirable job of getting as many of the rights as they can. But there's always a handful of holdouts. Notable exclusions from the first NASCAR title include Dale Jarrett, Darrell Waltrip, Kyle Petty, and that year's champion, Dale Earnhardt. Though once they had the rights to put him in the second game, they made sure to put him right on the cover. This has happened a lot over the years, though probably the most notorious example was when Carl Edwards was left out of NASCAR 07 and 08. Not for sponsorship reasons, but because he had his own game, a plug-and-play game in the mid-2000s. Let's see how it stacks up.
Wow, that's iconic. I'd 100% play that.
Might want to get his money back on this one. Jumping back to the real world, RCR found themselves in a litany of litigation in 2007, when after narrowly winning the Daytona 500 with Kevin Harvick, Sunoco, the official fuel of NASCAR, took issue with the enormous shell emblem on his torso. I just don't get why they couldn't be as cool as Monster Energy. Even after taking over for Sprint as the series title sponsor, they still let Paul Menard run a Rockstar car with no problems at all. Unlike Nextel, they were cool with RCR. though not every team was quite as
Why the pettiness then?
Hendrick Motorsports, still PepsiCo loyalists, took every opportunity they legally could to omit the Monster sponsorship, from their show cars to their die casts, and in one case, in an actual race. For his third career victory, Chase Elliott brought Mountain Dew back to victory lane for the first time since Darrell Waltrip did it in the early 80s. But as cameras pulled in closer to the car, fans noticed that the Monster Energy decal, which was standard for every Cup Series car, was noticeably absent from the right side. Some speculated it as simple oversight, but make no mistake, there was a real calculated reason behind it that's just as stupid as it sounds.
Okay.
The guidelines for sponsorship specification were explicitly clear about the sticker being present on the left side, but not so much the right. So Pepsi exploited this, and it paid off about as well as they could have hoped. Well, besides the fact that there were still Monster logos literally everywhere else you looked. And this wasn't even the first time that young Chase Elliott had chased away a series sponsor. In his first Daytona 500, he won the pole, contributing to an otherworldly 9-year stretch of front row starts for NASCAR's titular team in the Great American Race. All I know is that William Byron's scheme has nothing on the barbed-wired and blood-dashed pods moving and storage car. Rick Ware as a whole had a rough go in 2019. Not only had they taken up residence at the back of the pack, but their main sponsor, Jacob Companies, was getting little to no TV time. And while yes, running 40th every week will do that, many fans can recount a time when Fox would seemingly go out of their own way to avoid showing them, even running interviews during their qualifying sessions. This was because the network forced sponsors to pay a ransom to get them featured on TV, which was the same reason why the cars in the starting lineups for the 01 Bud Shootout were mostly blank. And when Jacob wouldn't pay up, Fox responded in kind. You could watch a full 4-hour race and never even know about Rick Ware or his driver's existence, which, looking back, might be a good thing. Another case of keep away from the camera came in a 2017 farewell commercial for Dale Earnhardt Jr. As an ode to his career and their time together, Budweiser put together a touching tribute that brought even the most cynical of race fans to tears. The only problem was that this was 10 years after they had stopped sponsoring it. So to avoid incurring the wrath of a certain right-smuggling control freak, they avoided using any Earnhardt Incorporated logos, including the famed number 8, forcing them to get creative with their camera angles. Still, restrictions be damned, they managed to make one of the best NASCAR commercials of all time, Front Row Motorsports' Josh Wise. This was because Wise was promoting Rick Santorum's presidential campaign, and as was implied by their nixing of Obama's campaign car during the previous election, they did not like getting involved in politics.
Yeah.
Well, that is until Trump came along. In 2004, Tony Stewart ran a Busch Series car sponsored by Kid Rock's new album, American Badass. But NASCAR didn't take kindly to Mr. Rock's foul language, so they made the team cover up part of the decal with tape, leaving it as Kid Rock Bad, which, yeah. During his incredible first season in the Xfinity Series, Ty Gibbs ran a number of races without support from his main squeeze, Monster Energy, because Kyle Busch was splitting time in the same car and was still peddling his own energy drink, Rowdy, which may or may not contain lead and/or mercury. And recently, Kyle's pushed the limits with his new sponsor, 3Chi.
There is just so much going on right now.
That's not actually their slogan, but it might as well be. Whereas the sport's been harsh on most other cannabis-related sponsors, they've seemed to embrace this one. I mean, of course you don't want little Timmy playing with a toy that advertises chewing tobacco or big pee-pee pills, but if little Timmy already watches NASCAR or goes to a store, then odds are he's already bound to see these logos. And
I was going to say, if you're watching it on TV...
If I'm a sponsor, I can't think of a single worse use of my time, money, and resources than getting in pissing contests with other sponsors. It's not savvy, it's not responsible, it's just petty. The point is that while the censoring of certain sponsors certainly does hold some merit, it's not nearly as serious as some make it out to be. At the end of the day, no matter what the almighty sanctioning body does, these sponsors are still supporting the sport that we love. So while billion-dollar companies keep haggling over who gets to put their logo on Ricky Bobby's crotch, I'm going to keep chewing Skull, taking Viagra, and drinking Budweiser, Busch, Coors, and Miller all at the same time.
Love that. That was good. I did enjoy that. Like, I didn't know any of that. So, I mean, whenever you guys request that I react to these videos, I have no idea what I'm about to watch and then end up learning so much. But like he said in the video, it's just petty. Even at the beginning, I was like, is it that deep? And then he said it at the end. He was like, is it a big deal? No, it's not a big deal. Is it that deep? No, not really. Some of that was really petty, and I was sat there like, are you joking? But yeah, that was good. So with that being said, if you have any other videos that you'd like me to react to, drop them in the comments. I'm working my way through everybody's suggestions at the moment. If you did want to check out any of my other socials, they are all linked down below. And if you wanted to become a member on this channel and receive exclusive perks, you can also do that by hitting the join button down below. But I hope you enjoyed today's reaction, and I will catch you next time for the next one. Bye!